Welcome back to another weekly Forex forecast, traders. I am FX Telepath. I've been doing these forecasts for over 5 years here on YouTube. So in my opinion, you guys are in the right place. And as always, we will start with the DXY. On the daily time frame, a significant thing has happened. We had a beautiful upward trend. That trend was removed, and that is definitely a bearish sign. However, it's not as bearish as something like this. If we had a clear peak and valley with a lower low to give us that trend line, it's not super bearish. However, it's definitely more bearish than bullish. I will say that. However, it's not the most bearish sign, and here is the reason, is because we have a weekly and a monthly demand zone in control. We've already got the reaction off of this weekly demand zone. I called this one out back in July. You can go back and watch my previous forecast on YouTube to check that. But it's a weekly demand zone inside of an overall monthly demand. I don't know if you guys can see the dotted lines on my chart, but that represents a monthly demand. So we have some sort of macro demand in control right here. That is why I'm expecting price to maybe rally. I will admit, since the weekly demand has already been tested once, it makes this zone much weaker. So if we do come back for a second test, I don't put as much weight on the zone for holding. It definitely could break. However, on the lower time frames, price action's a little bit more clear. Beautiful move off of this supply zone at the top. You can see, why is that a supply zone? Absolutely picture perfect move away. And not only that, we broke this low and some demand here, which has given us a new downward trend. So as long as this downward trend's holding, we could expect the dollar to continue to go down. Now, on the 1 hour time frame, we actually created a new 1 hour downward trend line that I'm going to draw for you guys right now with a nice 1 hour downward trend. We just removed a demand zone here as well, and that has left us with a supply level sitting above at 97.95. I think we could see dollar strength up to this supply, and since we've broken the daily trend line, it wouldn't shock me if we did react off of this supply zone. So it's definitely a zone that you want to have in your charts to see what happens when we react off of it. If we break it and we can break the downward trend line, then what that will tell me is that maybe this daily trend line break, maybe it was just some sort of massive fake out and we're going to continue to go to the upside. So for now, on the dollar, we could expect bulls to pick price back up again, right? Because of the weekly macro demand and control. So we have to be ready. If we start to break out and really start to break out and create uptrends, that's going to be a pretty bullish sign on the DXY. But for now, we want to be monitoring the 4 hour downward trend line and the 1 hour downward trend line and the 1 hour supply zone that I was talking about. Alrighty, on to the forecast for the Euro US dollar. You can see this supply zone. We got 1, 2, 3 reactions off of it. We are back in for that fourth test, going deeper than we have ever. And look, I don't love this zone. I mean, I'm not surprised. I mean, I did like the zone originally. It was a great setup off that trade, off that supply. However, it's very tested now, so I wouldn't be surprised if we do, break to the upside right now. On the euro. And on the 4 hour chart, how do we actually go about trading this? Well, we have a very proven area of supply. This is actually a trade we caught before, and this supply is very proven. You can see we got many reactions off of the supply zone. So if we do continue to push up and we do in fact break this 4 hour supply, any demand zone there is going to represent a pretty good buying opportunity, in my opinion. Not only that, we have a good, nice trend to the upside. So as long as this trend line's holding, I think looking for day trading longs on a 15-minute time frame would be completely fine. Even if we really get a deep pullback on the euro, what I'm hoping to see is a reaction off of this support liquidity trap to kind of make sure everyone has their stop losses here and right into our demand zone down there. Picture perfect liquidity trap setup. It doesn't always work, but it's just definitely another confluence that I like to see in my trades before taking them. So that's what I would love to see for that zone to make it higher odds, in my opinion. So even if we break the trend line, that's fine. We have a demand zone kind of sitting right down below on the 4 hour chart. If you want to get aggressive, you could be on the 1 hour chart. So full disclosure here, we actually took a loss on this supply zone here, and this was a great supply zone. It removed a demand zone. The basing was good, beautiful, aggressive move away. Not only that, we had a liquidity trap here as well, and the supply zone just didn't work. It worked for a bit, but we eventually blasted off and broke the supply zone. So just wanted to be very transparent here. We take many losses here, but we also have many wins, which you're going to see later on in this forecast. So just wanted to be honest, that was a losing trade, but look, this is a great setup. I'll lose a trade on this all day, especially when the move away is so good and there's a liquidity trap. Absolutely great trade, and sometimes they're just losers. So just wanted to be transparent with everybody. So make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and like the video. if you guys are enjoying this video so far. And like I said, subscribe if you want to catch these forecasts every single week. I do them for free. So if you want to get aggressive with longs, we do have a little rally-based rally that took out this very good area of supply. And look, just this zone could break too, right? You could lose 2 in a row. That can happen. I'm just trying to keep things realistic for everybody here. But this is a good zone. Nice move away at 116. I like it for a pullback for a potential long trade. It was created from the economic data that came out today, so a wider stop might be a little bit better here, just based off of that fact. But for now, it is looking like longs all the way, whether you want to wait for a pullback down in that demand zone or if you want to be day trading along with the 4-hour upward trend line. Alrighty, on to the forecast for gold. We finally have broken out on gold here after a very long range, pretty much starting back in May. So finally a nice breakout to the upside. And even if we do get a deep pullback, what a buying opportunity this would be at 30.93. Would be picture perfect in my opinion. On the daily chart, we clearly targeted this liquidity. I was talking about it last week. We had a very clear area of resistance here, and obviously the all-time highs above. So I wasn't surprised to see such a fluid move to the upside here. The nearest daily demand is actually down below at 34.76. It's not bad. It's definitely not a 10 out of 10 zone. I'd rate it like a 7. The location's not great. And I mean, just the basing is kind of hidden and the move away is mediocre at best. It's not bad. The overall move away is good, but the initial move's not bad. But look, it's really just longs all the way here. Even if we get a pullback, the daily demand zone at 30, I would be shocked if we got any lower than that trend line, in my opinion. It's just looking really strong right now in gold, obviously, as we're pushing to all-time highs. So it's going to be longs all the way, whatever time frames you guys trade. There is a little bit of a dilemma because you have a lot of levels here, a lot of zones. So I like the 1 hour view here. I like this trend. So as long as this trend line's holding, make sure you draw it the exact way from here to here and extend it. As long as this trend line's holding, I like looking for longs on a 5-minute chart. And look, if we break the trend line, that's completely fine. We have a demand zone sitting right down below. So if we break the trend line, we want to hold off on longs here, wait for this demand zone to be hit, and then hop on longs again at the 35.58 area on the 1 hour chart. Over here on the 4-hour time frame, kind of creating a new demand zone here on the 4-hour chart. Not my favorite. It's a little bit, it's decent. We could see a pullback down the zone. Confirmation on day trading time frame might be better in there. The better zone is actually sitting all the way down below at the 34.88 area. You can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 zones here. It can get very, very tricky. The better ones I'm seeing are this one and this one, I won't lie. Why? Because this one removed a very good supply zone. This one has a nice move away. That's why I prefer those two zones. But look, you can be looking for trades in all of them, and just letting your risk reward play out in the long run is not really a bad idea either. You could also, if you're a day trader, which I'm not, you could be looking for confirmation trades in there in any of these zones on like on a 15-minute time frame. I think that would be completely reasonable, and that will actually prevent you from some losses. So look, it's longs all the way. Whatever you trade, whether it's supply and demand, whatever, these are the zones I'm pointing out, and I think they're pretty good for potential longs here on gold. Alrighty, on to the forecast for the USDJPY. We have that this liquidity area down below on the weekly chart. Very tricky. There's really not a lot to go off of here. It's very difficult to predict where price is going to be heading when we don't have a trend like this. However, since there is liquidity down here, I am expecting price to maybe target that. So we could expect price to go down, and on the daily chart it becomes even more tricky, as if you see, we are basically, there's a supply zone above and there's a demand zone down below. We're basically sitting right in the middle of that. So price is at an equilibrium, if you want to call it that, whatever you want to call it, that's fine. Price is at fair value, whatever you want to call it. To me, it's very difficult to trade in a time like this. So what we have to do is go down to the lower time frames. It's difficult to tell where price is going to be going, right? Because we're sitting in the middle. It's not like we're sitting at supply and we can expect price to go down, or we're sitting at demand where we can expect price to go up. So we're going to be looking at some of the lower time frames here. Now on the 4-hour chart, pretty tricky price action. We absolutely blasted through a couple zones here. I don't love these zones created from economic data anyways. This was a decent zone, removed a pretty good area of demand, and that was just a loss there. But this actually created a 4-hour supply above at 147.98. What would make this supply better is if we can remove this 4-hour demand. Why? Because this is a very, very proven area of demand. I mean, so many reactions off of it. I'm counting 5, and it's probably actually more if you really get down into the details there, but it's like 4 to 5 tests off the zone, which means there's clearly demand down here, which comes from the big players. If you haven't watched my full course on YouTube, make sure you watch that. That's something I talk about. So if we can remove this very proven area of demand, that is going to be very significant. That is going to make this supply zone even more powerful, in my opinion. But even if we don't remove it, I still think it is a good supply zone for a potential short trade on the USDJPY on the 4-hour time frame. We actually caught a picture perfect 1-hour area of supply here at 148.58. This zone removed a proven area of demand. Nice supply zone, clean move away, picture perfect move off this supply zone, called out beforehand in the daily market breakdown video, and even one of the members, RTJ, caught a beautiful 1 to 7.5 on this UJ trade. Absolutely nailed it, so congrats to him, and that was called out in the daily market breakdown videos. If you want to trade alongside myself and the members, join the Diamond membership, where you will have access to the 38-page supply and demand zone PDF, which will be your complete trading guide, the daily market breakdown videos, which are forecasts that I release every single night for the members to trade alongside myself, step-by-step video lessons A to Z covering everything you need to know on supply and demand trading, the Sunday strategy Zoom session where members submit homework, and it's an interactive 1-hour call where we go over all of your homework and every trading related question, private access to myself inside of our private Discord group where I answer all of your trading related questions. And finally, the Sunday live stream forecast where we break down over 30 markets together. And it's not just me. Here are some of the members and some of their trades they've been taking lately. Absolutely killing it. And we also have some amazing reviews from some of the past members sharing their experience within the group. So if you're ready to trade alongside myself and the community, join the Diamond membership today. Links in the description down below. So for now on the 1-hour time frame, the trade's already kind of taken place. Nice trend on the downside. So in theory, we could be day trading short to kind of target all that 4-hour liquidity that was down below. I'm just not seeing a lot on this time frame. Like I said, the trade has already taken place. So for now, we want to monitor that downward trend line, and I'd be day trading short with that downward trend line. But keep in mind, it could mean that we are going to be pulling it back up to that 4-hour supply where we can get an even better potential shorting opportunity here on the USDJPY. Already on the forecast for the GBPUSD, really tricky daily chart here. We've reacted off of this supply 2 times now. Looks like we might be pushing back up for a 3rd time. At this point, we have to expect this to break. The only thing is we've barely tested it, so it wouldn't surprise me if we did push into it again and get another small reaction before we ended up breaking it. So just be cautious of that potential down move due to this daily supply. It's something to consider for sure. So I don't like the daily chart, so we're basically going to be looking at the weekly chart. And to me, all I see is a weekly trend, nice looking price action, weekly demand is in control. So I personally think longs are probably more favored here. That is just my opinion. On the 4-hour chart, we did remove a supply zone above and created a 4-hour demand zone down below. It's not my favorite zone. I actually like it more on the 1-hour chart. But if you're bullish, that is our demand zone pullback long at 1.347. I would have liked to seen this trend line removed as well. But sometimes beggars can't be choosers. On the 1-hour time frame, I really like the 1-hour trend line to the upside. So if you're a day trader, you want to monitor this trend line for sure. And this 1-hour zone is kind of a refined zone inside of that overall 4-hour zone. So it's a little risky taking when there's a 1-hour zone and a 4-hour zone to just take the 1-hour zone, because price could easily come down, stop you out, and push up where the 4-hour zone held. So it's kind of a tricky situation when we have a level inside of a level. But at the end of the day, nice trends are to the upside right now. Couple good zones there on the GBPUSD that we could be looking for longs off of, where when we potentially target the daily liquidity. That's what I think we could be seeing here with the formation of the 1-hour trend and the removal of the 4-hour supply. On to the forecast for the USDCAD. Beautiful weekly chart here as the weekly demand is holding and the weekly trend line is holding. Picture perfect. That's why we have to make sure we are at least drawing the supply and demand zones and the proper trend lines on the higher time frame. So looking pretty strong on the USDCAD. The daily momentum is up, I would say. We caught a beautiful 4-hour supply zone trade off of this supply zone here. Called out in the daily market breakdown video, and even a couple of members, Sahid and Jamuel, got a nice trade before we eventually ended up pushing back up. So it might not look like the zone was respected very well, but look at this move from here to here, right? Absolutely picture perfect. And then the economic data came out and boom, shot right back up. But it's nice to see you get a nice quick trade like that off that supply zone. Again, all called out before they happen, guys. I'm not one of these hindsight guys where it's like, oh yeah, I totally called this out. No, I did, and there's video evidence. Anyways, we are back in for a second test. Definitely not an area I would not be saying, oh, we should be looking for shorts. It could work. I've seen tested zones work like this. It is just not my cup of tea. And I'm actually having tea right now too. So I quit coffee, absolutely terrible, but it is what it is. The 4-hour supply above is actually pretty good as well. So this trade has already kind of worked out. At this point, this is really the only fresh supply zone that I am seeing at 1.39. Now, if we break this supply zone, any demand zone there is actually going to be a pretty good dip buying opportunity. So that is a zone I will have for the members on my charts if we do break this supply zone. And again, since the weekly demand and the weekly trend is holding, I actually kind of prefer longs here. It's not that I won't short at these supply zones. It's just aggressive trade management is needed due to the fact that the weekly trend and the weekly demand is in control. So yeah, these supply zones could work for like little trades like this for sure. But at the end of the day, if we do start to remove these zones, the demand zones that remove them, those are going to represent pretty good buying opportunities. Like I said, as the weekly demand and the weekly trend is holding pretty well here on the USDCAD. All right, on to the forecast for the Aussie US dollar. Looking at the weekly time frame here, not because there's something I need to show you, I just want to show you what bad price action looks like. So if you are a beginner trader, this is absolutely terrible. I mean, maybe there's some strategies that trade in this, but it's just wiki all over the place. No trends, clear manipulation, nothing up here that's fresh. I miss the old days of the Aussie US dollar. We had very clear zones on the weekly chart, but we just haven't really got that. However, the daily chart is giving us a little bit more information as we broke above the trend line and wicked right into this supply zone on the daily chart at 0.657. And I mean, we have seen a very nice move off of it so far. So it's not too shocking to see a move off of it since it was a fresh zone. I was a little weary about it, but so far, nice move off that supply. It's possible we do trace all the way down to this daily demand, where we could treat that as a dip buying opportunity. And if you are short, our profit margin long-term is measured down to this daily area of demand. So that's what I would be looking at as far as profit margin goes. The lower time frames are a little bit more clear. We do have a nice trend line. We just blew through a couple supply zones here, and it was crazy. We've literally been 3 for 3 on the Aussie. We called out this supply zone, got the setup, and then this supply zone here, got the setup off of that, and then this third one here, another trade off of that. So like 3 for 3, absolutely it's crazy. I don't want you guys to think that that's normal. It's really not. So anyways, these very, very proven areas of supply were removed. Almost a demand zone here. I don't really feel comfortable pointing that out. But look, nice trends to the upside. So we want to monitor this trend line from here to here, extend it as long as this trend line is being respected. I personally think looking for longs on a 15-minute time frame is fine. However, if we do remove this trend line, the nearest demand zone we want to look for longs is down here at 0.643. So it's the only fresh zone that I'm seeing is all the way down here. It's a pretty deep pullback. I'm not saying it can't happen, but I welcome it. I think it's a great dip buying opportunity. And even lower is this even better demand zone that was created back in June. And I think those are really good zones as well. But for now, we want to be monitoring this trend line and looking for, like I said, the day trading longs. And then for swing trading, we want to wait for that zone down below. Now, on the 1-hour chart, if you want to get more aggressive, we do have a pretty good 1-hour zone. I like the move. Again, it was created from the economic red folder data. Whenever it's a red folder data move, makes me a little bit nervous, but it's a nice move. I've seen these zones work. I've seen them not work. Honestly, I don't have the back testing on that to really say what's what, but all I know is the basing is nice and tight. The move away is good. If you want, I don't love this aggressive deep pullback though. That makes me very, very nervous. So looking for longs in here, I would maybe risk just a little bit less. If you normally risk 1%, risk half. If you normally risk half, risk a quarter, whatever. I think it's a decent zone. If you don't feel comfortable with just an entry, stop, and take profit, what you could do is just look for confirmation on a 5-minute chart. And what I mean by that is looking for demand zones to be formed on the 5-minute time frame once the demand zone is hit. On to the forecast for the USDCHF. There's really not a lot to go off on the weekly or the daily time frame. That's why I'm not zooming into them. It's just kind of, there's not a lot to go off of, right? We have the weekly demand and control. That's really about it. But I mean, on the lower time frames, in the 4 hour and the 1 hour, price is clearly, I don't want to say tanking, it's kind of exaggerating, but it's clearly pulling back. And we finally pulled back into this 4 hour demand zone. I was talking about up here, as soon as we broke this load and created a downward trend, I'm saying profit targets were easily all the way down to this demand zone. And now we are in it. So, and we've got so far a nice move off the zone. So I've been pointing out this zone to the members for a while now. And again, beautiful zone, a beautiful move off the zone so far. And since it's a 4 hour zone, I think personally looking for longs in a 15-minute chart, with this demand and control, I think that's great. And profit margin is all the way up to this 4 hour supply at 0.80. It's not a bad supply zone. It's kind of hidden. It did remove a significant area of demand that removed a trend line and targeted this liquidity. So I think it's a decent little hidden zone, kind of weird basing here. So might want a wider stop, but it's definitely an area I think maybe we could see a small move off of, all depending on what happens with the DXY, but very nice supply zone up above. And the 1 hour chart, it makes it a little bit more clear. But again, when we have a 1 hour zone instead of an overall 4 hour zone, it might be best just to take the 4 hour zone, a little bit safer, but at the end of the day, nice supply zone. And as always, guys, look for confirmation in them on day trading timeframes if you don't feel comfortable with just trading them. It makes total sense. But yeah, for now, I'd be focused on the 4 hour chart. I think that's more clear. Nice trends to the downside as well. So in theory, day trading short is fine. But for now, I personally want to wait for the 4 hour supply zone above. And then if you're bullish, like I said, the 4 hour demand is actually in control. So you're in luck. Longs for now, all the way. Alrighty, last but not least, we're on to the forecast for crude oil. We have a weekly demand in control. So I just want to say that before we go into the rest of the analysis. The weekly demand is in control, and that's pretty strong. However, we've clearly pulled back in for a second time into this demand zone. So it has been tricky. Trading can be very, very tricky, guys. And if you need help with trading psychology, make sure to check out my podcast, the Stoic Trading Psychology Podcast, available anywhere you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Music, and much more. I also made a YouTube channel for the podcast as well. So I would appreciate a subscription over there to try to help these beginner traders stay realistic when it comes to trading. All of these fake gurus out there are promising crazy returns and crazy results, and I try to keep things realistic. So if you want actual, real trading psychology help, I think that podcast will help you guys out a lot. So as far as oil goes, like I said, the weekly demand is in control, so our bias is actually to the upside. However, with the new low formed here on the daily chart, we have a new updated daily trend line. So it is looking really weak. It is not looking like oil is going to go up. However, we have to be ready for that move. So if we do remove this daily downward trend, that is going to be a very, very significant new move. And that's going to be a pretty bullish sign because the weekly demand is in control. Now, as far as trading it goes, we have a nice 1 hour downward trend. So I don't mind looking for shorts right now on the day trading timeframes with the nice trend of the downside. So I personally like looking for shorts on a 5-minute chart. I think it's pretty reasonable. If you're absolutely super bearish and you think price is going to go absolutely down, that's fine. The weekly demand and control makes me nervous about shorting, but there is a decent 1 hour supply zone here at 63.21 that we certainly could see some sort of move off of if you are bearish. The aggressive entry for the longs would be something like this, where we can remove this area of supply. Any demand zone there, that's going to represent our confirmation trade as we come off of that weekly demand. Typically, we want to look for H4 confirmation coming off of a weekly demand. However, that's why I'm saying this is more aggressive when looking for on the 1 hour chart, because the issue is I don't really see any confirmation here on the 4 hour chart unless we can get a pullback all the way up here and break this supply. That's going to be another confirmation, but you might be in luck. Maybe we break that little 1 hour supply, we get an entry here, push up, break this supply, entry there. It's very, very possible. And if the better supplies on short is actually above here at 65.82. So if you're really, really bearish, that is our best supplies on short. But for me, since the weekly demand's in control, I personally think being patient and potentially waiting for confirmation and demand zones formed, trading in the weekly demand, that's going to offer potentially better results. If you want access to the full Forex forecast, make sure you subscribe to the Diamond membership, where you get access not only to my daily chart analysis, but also my daily forecast, where I forecast basically like this forecast, but every single day for the members. It also comes with the 38-page PDF, which is your guide for trading as well. Make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, and I'll see you in the next video.